We know that we come to today's conference in a certain context, and that context is the storm that New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and environs all around us have experienced. After you've seen the video, you don't need me to say anything about his life or his courage or his mission. But I just want to say that almost 10 years ago I met Father Michael for the first time, and I had the opportunity to be a participant in a Healing of Memories workshop. And because I was there for a weekend, I met people in my small group that we met together for years afterwards for lunch. People I never, ever would have known, ever. That's what happened as a result of being a part of the Healing of Memories workshop, besides a lot more. So, enough of me. I'd like to ask Father Michael to come up here.
Thank you. I'm going to begin with a short reading from the book Redeeming the Past, My Journey from Freedom Fighter to Healer. It's from the opening chapter, The Bombing. It was April the 28th, 1990, and I had just sat down in my living room in Harare, happy and a bit tired after a lovely farewell party that my friends had given for me. I was sorry to leave them and to leave Harare, a city that had been my home for several years. But I looked forward to my new life as a parish priest in Zimbabwe's second city, Bulawayo. As I chatted with Andrew Mutizwa, the young man who shared my house, I reached over to a neglected pile of unopened mail and picked up a large manila envelope that had arrived from South Africa. Inside, I found 2 religious magazines wrapped in plastic, one in Afrikaans, the other in English. Peeling away the plastic, I opened the English language magazine and thereby completed the circuit. The force of the blast struck me full on. I felt myself hurtling backwards as if I were falling into unending darkness. If my eardrums hadn't been shattered, I would have heard the crash of the ceiling falling all around me. If my eyes hadn't been blinded, I might have made out what remained of my living room amid the rubble. But as it was, I entered a world of silence, darkness, and excruciating pain. Instinctively, I knew that I had been bombed by the apartheid regime. I was in extraordinary pain, and I remember screaming to the strangers who arrived to help me from the hotel across the street. I'm a member of the ANC. You must get help for me. I now think it was a blessing that I couldn't see, because it spared me from the sight of the blood and the stumps where my hands had been. The night of the bombing, my friend Phyllis Naidu rushed to the hospital. Phyllis is what I would call a retired Catholic. I asked her to say the Lord's Prayer, which she had probably learnt at her mother's knee, but which she nevertheless struggled to complete. When she got to "Deliver us from evil," which is how the prayer ends in the Roman Catholic tradition, I remember saying, No, Phyllis, you can't stop with evil. We have to go on to, for thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever. So even then, lying there, broken as I was, I felt a sense of victory. I had won by thwarting the attempt that the Boers had made to kill me. I was alive, and I suppose my work over the months and years since that day has been about appropriating that victory. Redeeming the Past, my journey from freedom fighter to healer. It is around this theme of redeeming that I would like to reflect with you. But also, thank you to PSI, thank you to Healing of Memories North America. You seem to have managed to snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat today. My daughter introduced himself when we were going around, but he and I were stranded in Colorado. We were due on Sunday to go to Washington for an event there, and then we've been cancelling. But PSI are a force to be reckoned with. They don't just cancel. So thank you, and thank you to each of you. I'm delighted that this event could happen. I thought it would be good to frame our conversation, as we've already done in the introductions, with Sandy's work that is still playing itself out in many ways. If you like, it inevitably is the backdrop to our conversation. And so I want to share some reflections that relate to the book, but also I know that part of the way the original event was framed was in terms of struggling with forgiveness. I think that's right, isn't it? And so I want to also, get to that. But the word redeeming, which is in the title of the book, speaks to this idea of bringing life out of death, good out of evil. This idea of these things happen to us, but what do we do with them? Do they cause us to diminish, or do they cause us to grow? So redeeming is one idea, if you like, or one concept that I'd like to hold throughout this conversation. But the other is a term in my theological tradition, and that is the idea of a kairos moment. And some of you will be very conversant with that, and some have not been messed up by the church quite as much, so you won't know that term quite as well. But you know that there's chronos. I have a watch which is about chronos, and it says it's 5 to 9 in South Africa. But time moment by moment. But then the concept of kairos is about a dramatic moment, and in my theological tradition, it's about a moment, a crisis moment, a moment that then becomes a moment of grace or a moment of opportunity, and how we respond as human beings. My story is about how an act of evil was done against me, an attempt to kill me, but through the prayer and love and support of people across the world, I was enabled to make it life-giving. And the work of Healing of Memories across the world bears testament to that life-giving response. But a key part of what I just said is I didn't do that alone. Prayer, love, support from people across the world was what enabled me to travel a journey from being a victim to being a survivor to being a victor. If something horrible has been done to us, we're victims. If we physically survive, we're survivors. But often people remain prisoners of moments of history. And this is true both of the natural disaster as it is in terms of the human disaster. And I'm sure there will be people, maybe not a huge proportion, but there will be people as a consequence of Hurricane Sandy who are going to be paralyzed. I don't mean physically paralyzed, but emotionally paralyzed. They were, because the whole sense of how the world should be is so messed up that they won't be able to proceed in their lives without help and support. And many of you are therapists, and so that'd be part of your task, is to provide the kind of support ongoing for people to pick up their lives again.